Your Holiness, distinguished guests and participants, on the behalf of the organizers, the Finnish Tibetan Cultural Association and the Songtsen Association, I wish you very welcome to this event here at Marona today. Your Holiness, since 2006, when you visited Finland for the previous time, we have been waiting for you to come again. Today, I have this wonderful opportunity to thank you on behalf of us all for your kindness and generosity as you return once again to Finland to give teachings and guide us on the path of peace and freedom.
Thank you. So body tradition, mainly you see, follow and keep that tradition in Burma, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, and Laos, these are named. The Sanskrit religion from India to China. To China, Vietnam, Korea, Japan. One group. Then, again from India, directly to Tibet. And through Tibet, Mongolia, then now today, Mongolia, 3 parts. One part of Mongolia, which includes from China, that we call Inner Mongolia. Then independent Mongolia. Then in Russian Federation, I think 2 republics. That's Mongol type. There are 2 republics. As they say, more disturbed. But all these areas follow Tibetan Buddhism. Different language, different script, but as far as Buddhism is concerned, they study with Tibetan script at the last several centuries. So, historically, Buddhism is actually originally from India. India, that was the area, that almost continent. I think 3,000-4,000 years, the different tradition of this time. The earliest spiritual tradition is Sankhya philosophy, before Buddhism. Then, around 2,600 years, the Mahavira come, and almost same time, Buddha Shakyamuni came. So the Jainism and Buddhism start. Then later, Sikhism, very much in the spirit of non-sectarian. Guru Nanak, the first teacher of Sikhism, he even pilgrimage, go to Mecca. So very much in the spirit of non-sectarian. These are homegrown religions. Of course, from Sankhya philosophy, there are many different sort of Hindu traditions. These are homegrown traditions. Then from outside, very, very ancient time, the Parsi Zoroastrian tradition come from Iran. I was told, still in Iran, some sort of say, Zoroastrian practitioner there, I heard. But in India, very small community, but they settle happily, no pain. I think around 100,000 population in India, but very safe. recently, of course, then the Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all these major religions come to India. So India today, I think all major religions live together. Recently, I met one European. He carried some research work about religious harmony in India. So in Rajasthan, he visited one Muslim village. I'm sure it's a few thousand Muslims there. Then he found 3 Hindu families among the Muslim village. But these 3 Hindu families, no fear. Very sort of close relations or friendship with the rest of the Muslim community. That's the illustration. Of course, occasionally some problems in the name of the tradition. It happened. That's of course understandable. A huge country, big population, so some issues people understand. But basically India still kept 1,000-year-old Indian tradition, religious harmony. So now, morning session, I am going to speak mainly religious harmony, and then one sort of short text about how to carry practice of altruism, particularly, in daily, particularly when we face some problems, how to keep our altruistic sort of attitude, and also how to practice forgiveness, these things. So that later I will explain something. Now, since our senior elder student of Buddha, Shakyamuni, you, the people who keep Theravada tradition, so you are senior Buddha student. We are junior. So you recite Pali as the short sutra, and then you also senior before Buddhism reached Tibet, already reached China. So through China, well-known Korea, Japan, this area. So you also, among the follower of Sanskrit tradition, you are senior. So now, we are junior. Now juniors own, what's the share. I am going to recite the essence of the Heart Sutra in Tibetan. Masam jene jero bare jema yeme lana kemo yezo lore yishi tusum jere yumba chase mo teata gade para sam gade bude so teata gade para sam gade bude so teata gade para sam gade bude so Nende Shiva Sono Kishini Jenye Jitese Kanyenda Dola Dala Majini Jitese Lozawa Kanda Yanda Dembe Dono Napa Kundena Zonde Somba Nende Shanjo Sembe Soje Sanje Kini Yumdela Chase Mo Kange Denjin Jawa, Gawa Meva, Jemeva, Shava Meva, Dameva, Wameva, Domeva, Tabetimi, Jabani, Jishidem, Sobe Sanyamana, Tamba de la Chazemo. So, in India, I think different period. One early period, the main Buddhist center, I think one of the main center we call Takshashila, now in Pakistan side. Then I think during those periods, some area, now today is Pakistan and also Afghanistan, even the Kyrgyzstan, Kyrgyzstan. You see some in the past, you see some area Buddhism flourish. So Afghanistan quite well known. On the road or Silk Road from India then to China through Silk Road. Because in this area seems to see Buddhism once very much flourished. And now today's place called Xinjiang or the East Pakistan, there also one time some sort of Buddha Dharma or flourish. Like that. So then later, the Nalanda institution, monastic institution, developed in India. Then later, Brikamalashila. So I think both in UP, no? Nalanda, I think Bihar, or Nalanda in UP, the other in Bihar. I think the Brikamalashila in Bihar. So in any way, these three Buddhist institutions, I think served Buddha Dharma over 1,000 years. I think nearly 2,000 years. Then the Tibetan tradition, because the person, Indian Buddhists who introduced Buddhism in Tibet was one of the top scholars, philosopher or logician of Nalanda institution in 8th century and 9th century. So his name, Shantarakshita. So Tibetan emperor invited him from Nalanda. So he top scholars. His writing and the philosophical, sort of Madhyamika philosophy, one text, still be studied, practice according to that book, that text. And also he wrote sort of logical,
Logical epistemology. Logical epistemology.
epistemology book. Very good one. That also we study. Then his main student, Kamalashila, also invited by Tibetan emperor. So I think that 9th century. He also great scholar of Nalanda. So his writing again about Madhyamika philosophy, one very important text, still we use study. And then commentary about his teacher's sort of text about epistemology, very thick commentary. That also available in Tibetan translation. So the Shantarikshita, according to some historian, Shantarikshita, when he reached Tibet, his age around 70 and nearly 80 years old. Then rest of his life was spent in Tibet, then died in Tibet. So even that such old, famous Nalanda scholar, according to some historians say, he tried to study Tibetan language. So I'm wondering whether his Tibetan accent, what kind of accent, one very old Indian Buddhist scholar, at very old age, he started learning Tibetan. So I'm just wondering. And he advised the Tibetan emperor all these texts in the Pali language and Sanskrit language must translate into Tibetan language. So they eventually, I think through generations, it's different translators, but eventually today we have the text which translated from India about Buddha's own word, 100 volumes. Then commentary wrote by Indian scholars like Nagarjuna or Shantarikshita himself, and these sort of texts, about 225 volumes. So these are the sources of our study. So some of the top Tibetan scholars who study 30, 40 years study and also memorize most sort of root text. So these top scholars, all these 300 volumes, almost in their brain. So that's something I usually call living tradition of Nalanda. We kept last more than 1,000 years. So of course, at 8th century, so besides Shantarikshita, Pema Sambhava was also there. Pema Sambhava's main sort of responsibility, helping Shantarikshita and remove all the obstacles or hindrance of spreading Buddha Dharma or establish Buddha Dharma. So all the negative sort of obstacles, the Pema Sambhava, the main sort of his responsibility is that one. Others, you see, the giving sort of ordination and explanation, and logics, and philosophy, and Vinaya, all this carried by Shantarikshita. Then later, during Kamalashila, there was a record. Some Chinese meditation during Shantarikshita, they are already there. So these, the history says they are experts about meditation. So one temple in Samya temple, there's a different sort of department for translation, department of the Vinaya monastic sort of the education and discipline. And then the department of meditationers. They are Chinese Buddhist practitioners, mainly. You see, the Chinese Buddhist meditationers. Then another sort of department called the yogi practitioners, mainly lay people like that. So all these, I think, supervise these things mainly carried by Shantarakshita. So during Kamalashila, after Shantarakshita passed away, among some Chinese meditation, some of them, you see, they reject study is not important, just simply meditation. So then Kamalashila, on the request of the Tibetan emperor, also debate in order to achieve Buddhahood, only meditation was sufficient or not. One occasion in Japan, my talk with one, I think, college, some Japanese student. One student asked me, his teacher telling him that in order to achieve Buddhahood, no need study, just meditate. He asked me, is Buddhahood can achieve only through meditation, single-pointed mind. So such tradition in China, you see, there are among Buddhists, some reading prayer books, aiming to born Sukhavadi, some simply meditation, and I think Zen practice also mainly come through that. So during I think 9th century, there is some sort of serious discussion. So the Kamalashila invited. And then Kamalashila, as the main student or disciple of Shantarakshita, after that debate, on the request by the Tibetan emperor, he wrote 3 books in Tibet. So he explained, single-pointed meditation, very important, but that alone not sufficient. The vipassana, or insight, also very, very important. For that, knowledge is extremely important. So, single-pointed meditation and insight must go together. So for that reason, the emphasis study is very, very essential. So Tibetan tradition, till now, we carry that tradition. So we usually call the Theosong Pamso.
So in Tibetan Buddhism, there's emphasis on studying the text, Buddhist texts, as well as contemplating, reflecting on the meaning, and then finally applying the teachings in meditation.
So, actually, in Buddhist tradition, use human intelligence and use reasons are very, very important. So the wisdom or intelligence, right?
Intelligence, wisdom. Wisdom. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is emphasis also on developing our wisdom or intelligence.
There are 3 levels. Firstly, some kind of understanding through hearing, either through reading or through lecture, explanation by sound. Then that sort of knowledge is essentially something like superficial knowledge. Now that knowledge must sort of, further investigate by yourself. So analyze, and also, you see, collect information from different texts, then make sort of what's today,
to do analysis and examination of the teaching.
Then another level of awareness out of thorough investigation. That level of awareness is based on logic. The previous, no, just a hearing. So not very still. One day you hear, you get some awareness through hearing by someone or by one book. The next, you find different book or different lecture. Then you may confuse because of your understanding is very superficial. The second level of sort of knowledge, understanding, you yourself analyze and also collect information from different sort of texts, different sources. So your knowledge, the second level of the understanding, is now very valid, based on reason. Now, in order to carry that, skepticism is very essential. Skepticism, very important. Skepticism, skeptical attitude brings questions. Question brings investigation. Investigation brings answer. So it is very, very important. Namgyada tenjum da Geshe Langri Thangpa goso shishisa sungya jeja goba ningu dawa.
So in the classical text, there are usually given what are known as the four different things in the text, about which are the content or the subject matter of the text, and then why the subject matter is dealt with in the text, the purpose, and then the final goal of the writing the text, and then the relationship between these first 3 points.
So, those major texts, you see, mentioned the audience of such text must be who have skeptical attitude. So, the Buddha himself made very clear. One sutra mentioned, "O my follower, bhikshus, scholars, you should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation, then experiment. Through that way, once you develop conviction, through thorough investigation and experiment, then you accept my teaching." So Buddha mentioned that. So, all the Nalendra masters, Nagarjuna, Arya Asanga, Arya Deva, or so on, or Buddha Palita, Vavavika, and Chandakirti, Dharmakirti, Digna, all these great sort of philosophers, great sort of master. Usually I describe great sort of professors of Nalanda institution. So these scholars or great practitioners of Buddha Dharma, they took the liberty to examine Buddha's own word, whether this text can be literally acceptable or not. They investigate. If you say the point which mentioned in certain sort of text goes against our experiment or investigation, against the logical sort of investigation, then they reject. This is Buddha taught to different audiences, different purpose. So you can find Nagarjuna's writing or all these great sort of masters' writing make sort of, or say, the investigation on Buddha's own word. So therefore, the second level of knowledge or understanding, through thorough investigation, analyze, that's very, very important. Then through that way, once you develop real sort of conviction based on full understanding about the reasons, about the values, then familiarize. Then eventually, what's a certain sort of mental experience without effort. As soon as you think that, automatically it develops some kind of sort of strong feeling. And then also, with help of single-pointed mind, shamatha, then you are understanding the third level of wisdom or understanding, conjunction.
So this third level of understanding is called the wisdom arisen through meditation.
So that's the Nalanda tradition goes like that. 1,000 years with Tibetan, you see, they study basically that way. So myself, I start my study at age 6, 7. At that time, I have no interest study. My only interest is play. So, the translation is what? Translation, oh, good, very good. Simple translation, very good. So save time, very good. So, Russian Yoga, finish. How many different languages? Okay. It's not my sort of duty. I just try to express through my broken English. Very good. So, so you see, my own sort of cases, around 6, 7, I already start memorize some of the root text. Impossible to understand the meaning, but simply the word memorize. So at that time I'm quite lazy. So my tutor is always kept 1 week. If I study not well, then sometimes she look at the whip. So at that time, my elder brother, also monk, so he also, you see, studied with me. So 2 weeks, one for me, one for him. So the 1 week, yellow color, looks holy week. Naturally, for holy, lazy, stupid young student. But then I know, if you use the holy whip, I know no sort of what's the holy pain, just a pain. So out of my sort of fear about that whip, so I quite disciplined way study, go that way. I think a few years go that way. Then eventually, I think around 10, 11, then gradually I developed some interest from within. Then put more effort, study. Then around 16, 17, or 17, 18, then now more or less finalize the date of my final examination. Then, I made more effort because of final examination. That serious effort, not for Buddhahood, but for examination. So that's the Tibetan tradition. I think like this monk, who also scholar. So he study, I think 15, 20 years. You? 20? 18 years. So tradition, in Tibet, in the past, some of those top scholars, they study, I think, at least 25 years or 30 years. So therefore, our tradition, according to our tradition, study is very important. So, but general public, Tibetan, Buddhist, I think 90% Buddhist. Of course, there are some Muslims also there. In 20th century, some Christians also there. But more than 90% are Buddhist. Then, of course, some non-believer also there. But knowledge, real Buddha Dharma, in public level, very limited. So I also found among the Chinese Buddhists, among the Japanese Buddhists, and also Vietnamese Buddhists, we chanting these texts, but without knowing the meaning. I also was teasing my Hindu Hindu friends, Indian friends. They recite some Sanskrit shloka, Sanskrit sentences, but without knowing the meaning. So I always say, urge Buddhists, we must pay more attention about study. Study is very, very essential. Once I was in Thailand, I noticed some university, Buddhist university. So they study. And the occasion, I think, when we met in Sarnath, isn't it? Sarnath. And then later, I also met some Burmese Buddhist students in Bombay who study in Bombay University, some different, I think, English or some other different subject. So I discussed Pali tradition, excellent. Sometimes I think some people get the impression, so-called Mahayana and Hinayana is something different. That's totally mistake. The teaching of Pali, usually called Hinayana, it is the foundation of Buddha Dharma. And all sort of teaching Four Noble Truths and the 37 sort of practice. What's
7 factors leading to enlightenment.
And 12 links. All these, the foundation of Buddha Dharma, and the practice of samadhi, practice of vipassana, all Buddhist practice is common. Then Sanskrit tradition, more explanation with logic about anattma theory, selflessness, no soul theory, anattma theory. Like these, the sutra which they recite, like Heart Sutra, the main sort of, what's the topic of these sutras, Paramita Sutra, is anattma theory. And then the way presentation about anattma theory, like Nagarjuna, all through reasons, not based on quotation of Buddha. So, out of Four Noble Truths, the Paramita Sutra, further explanation about Third Noble Truth, Nirodha. Nirodha comes on the basis of shunyata, anattma theory. So it is absolutely wrong. Get impression, or keep impression, Mahayana, Hinayana is something different. No, totally wrong. And the basis of Buddha Dharma, I think one important basis of Buddha Dharma is Vinaya. In Vinaya practice, we Theravada Patimoksha and Sanskrit Patimoksha, you see some minor differences, otherwise same, like 4 Parachika and 13, what's the Sangha was saying, that same. Then another group, 30 practice, same. Then 19. According the Pali Patimoksha, 92. Ours, 90. Then differences in the fifth level, minor sort of precept, how to eat, how to walk, these things, and how to wear. Here, let's say according Sanskrit sort of Pali, Sanskrit sort of Patimoksha, 112. The Pali tradition, 75 or something, isn't it? The fifth level there. I think 75 or something. So I checked, in the Sanskrit Patimoksha, you see mentioned about lower garment, 7 point. You should not lower than this kind of ankle, 1%. It should not sort of above or this knee, 1. So like that, regarding lower garment, 7 point. In Pali, just 1. You should wear properly, if not 1%, like that. So that's very minor thing. So the Vinaya or monastic sort of practice. It is the foundation of Buddha Dharma. Buddha himself, you see, mentioned where so long bhikshus sort of rule there, there is Buddhism. Right. Where no bhikshus rule there, then no longer Buddha Dharma there. He mentioned, so the Theravada tradition and the Sanskrit tradition, the Vinaya monastic system, same, basically same. Small minor differences. Then that's the practice of contact, moral contact. Then second level, samadhi, single-pointed mind.
Three higher trainings. The three higher trainings.
Three higher trainings: Shila, Samadhi, Vipassana. Same. So in any way, now, sorry, since you see here, the senior student of Buddha, which is sort of holder of Pali tradition, so I just want to, because of that, share our common practice. Then the problem is Tantriya. In fact, before Nagarjuna came, already sort of criticism about Mahayana there. So Nagarjuna, Maitreya Bodhisattva, and then Vabhivika, and so on. Many scholars, Buddhist scholars, you see, made special effort to clarify that kind of misunderstanding. Mahayana teaching or Sanskrit teaching actually taught by Buddha himself. So then Tantriya, even among the people who follow the Sanskrit tradition or Mahayana, among Chinese, some are really critical, denying existence of Buddhist Tantriya. So here also, some tantric practice, unless the practitioner really have sort of genuine sort of experience and also the power of control for your body element, then certain sort of tantric practice is then helpful. But without reaching such sort of stage, such stage, without reaching that stage, that ability, then follow some of the practice of Tantriya mentioned is actually like poison. Very bad, very dangerous. So unfortunately, in Tibetan tradition, Atisha Divankara, I think 11th century, he again invited by, at that time, the Tibetan emperor. So Atisha actually, you see, in his writing, he mentioned, you must be very careful to practice Tantriya. Otherwise, it can be very harmful. He mentioned that. So at that time, Tibetan seems to see font some sort of, faithful Buddha Dharma, but not much interested about Vinaya sort of tradition. So they prefer Tantriya, drink alcohol, wife, and go on, like that. So I think, and then also you see, too much importance of Lama, not text. So later, I think 19th century and early part of 20th century, some Western scholars describe Tibetan Buddhism as not genuine Buddhism, but Lamaism. So these misunderstandings, you see, develop because of some of Tibetan public sort of what's the certain act, right?
Because doing so, people get misunderstanding about Tibetan Buddhism because of certain doings of certain practitioners.
In Tibet, I think they are popular religion, and then real Buddhism. There could be two levels. So some people, some Western scholars, criticize or make comment about my sort of explanation, or Dalai Lama's sort of teaching of Buddhism is not popular sort of Dharma teaching. Popular, sorry, not Tibetan tradition. Because I think my way of sort of explanation is not the popular level. Popular, just you see some drums, some sort of horns, and some music. Actually, the very name of the music we call Gyaling. Gyaling means Gyamis limbo.
Oboe.
Flute, right?
Oboe. The oboe in Tibetan, the name for oboe is Gyaling, which means Gya here means refers to China, and Ling means a flute, so they are Chinese flutes.
So these traditions not come from Nalanda, but influenced by Chinese musicians. So it's some of these monasteries in Tibet and also some Ladakh in this area. The person who carries that sort of music, they also dress like Chinese. Sometimes we too much emphasis importance of these things, artificial things, forget real substance of Buddha Dharma. And one time in America, I think 2 years ago, one American lady expressed to me, you mentioning Tibetan tradition is Nalanda tradition. Then she raised the question, the Mahamudra tradition and the Dzogchen tradition, these come from yogis, not Nalandas or masters. That's not the case. Like Naropa, Mahamudra come from Naropa and Mijiva. Firstly, like Naropa, previously he studied, become a scholar in Nalanda institution. He became one famous scholar of Nalanda. The Mijiva, I don't know. So, in any way, the Mijiva mentioned Nagarjuna's theory. Take quotation of Nagarjuna's text. So these great yogis, their original concept or practice come from Nalanda. Then Sakya, Birvaba, Dhammapala. Previously, again, one of the Nalanda top scholars. And Dzogchen, Dhammasambhava, and simultaneously, same time, Ishadarakshita. And Dhammasambhava also received teaching from Rinzin Namgye, Rinzin Gye. Among the Rinzin Gye, Nagarjuna, Sungrinzin.
So these 8 masters are known as 8 Vidyadharas, and one of them was Nagarjuna, who was called the Vidyadhara of speech.
So all Kagyu tradition, Chonan tradition also, Yingwa tradition, Kadam tradition, and Kadam Sama, Giluk tradition, all the original source is a Nalanda tradition. So my sort of emphasis is, now will time come, we must go to the roots of tradition. That's another tradition. And then there is no basis of sectarian. Otherwise, some say, oh, we are Nima. Some say we are Gilu. Some say we are Saja. And should not receive teaching from other lineage. That's sectarian. We already sort of experienced in the past Tibet. The sectarian attitude really make great damage upon Buddha Dharma. So, my full commitment is promotion of non-sectarian. I receive teaching from Nyingma tradition, Kagyu tradition, Saja tradition, Kadam or Giluk tradition. I really found all these traditions. If you know why does it Kasuta?
Wider perspective.
Wider perspective or study or receive teaching from these sort of different traditions, different lineage, and you carefully analyze, then it is very clear. All traditions, Tibetan tradition, come from Nalanda. So essence all same, except a little different sort of way of presentation, a little different.
Minor difference.
Minor difference. Some tradition emphasis here, some tradition emphasis there. Otherwise, same. So therefore, I always say carry teaching mainly the Indian text. Now this text, one Tibetan sort of great sort of practitioner and also scholar, he wrote. But this is very simple, so I choose that. Okay. So now, this text now. I think firstly, the author of this text, I think maybe 12th century, Atisha Dibumkaras was the first generation of student, then second student of that generation. So at that time, this was a well-known, great practitioner of altruism, of Buddhist. So, now the first verses. I received oral transmission, this text, from late Geshe Langri. So now the 8 verses. The meaning, 2 categories. One, the practice of altruism. Another, the wisdom. Now here, the typical sort of term, Kudu Chandragusam, Chandra Chandragusam.
So these two are also referred to as the conventional altruism or conventional bodhicitta, which is that altruistic attitude to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then the other one, wisdom, is referred to as the ultimate bodhicitta.
Now first verse was this is mentioned. I consider the infinite sentient being as the most precious. So I myself consider something like servant of infinite sentient being. Now the word I. One time in India, Amritsar, the seat temple of Sikhism, one interfaith meeting. So there, one scholar about Sufism. You see, he, in his sort of talk, he put 3 questions. What is self or I? Then, whether that I beginning or not. And the 3rd question, that I, whether there is end or not. 3 questions. Then he mentioned all different traditions give answer for these 3 questions. So then he explained about Sufism like that. So his presentation very much impressed to me. So now I also raised 3 questions. What is self? I. For that question, answer for that question, now 2 groups. Group of basically 2 traditions. One tradition, that means except Buddhism, all traditions, all majority tradition, except concept of soul. Hindi word Atma, soul. English, I think soul. The meaning or entity, identity of that soul is something like owner of this body. So the ownership and possession, possessor and the possessed must be separate, different. So the I is a possessor. Possessor must be separate identity. So particularly those traditions, like many Hindu traditions, they accept rebirth. So there must be something who take new body, new life. So the taker of the new life must be separate from the body and mind. From this life to next life, obviously this body not go. This mind, which related with this body, also cease at the time of death. So there must be something. So body and mind always changing. That self, soul not changing. At body level, young age body, middle age body, and old age body, different. But I is same. So I is oneness, permanent, unchanging. So all religious traditions, except Buddhism, accept that. Now, Buddhism, of course, I is there. Nobody can deny existence of I or self. But self if we investigate the very nature of the self, is just designated on the combination of body and mind, not separate person, identity, entity. These are one sutra. I think in Pali also, I think mentioned that. One shloka, Dajishao Duisen, Tenin Tower. Then Tower Cubains are Tower Queen Masson and Marguerite is joy. These would they Dushi Pumpu Ditonde, Janadan Yon such.
So there is a quotation from a sutra, the words of the Buddha, which says that this notion of I that we have is like a devilish mind. And this is the basis of the fundamental source of all kinds of wrong views. Whereas the psychophysical constituents that we are made up of, basically mind, our body and mind, which make us up, they are empty, and therefore there is no independent self.
Then, next verses mentioned what is self. It mentioned Shidriyama Chonale, Dani Shinda Jevata, Tishin Pungunam Dani, Guzo Sinja Jevis.
And then following that verse, the same sutra says, just as a chariot is designated on the basis of its parts, which are put together, likewise on the basis of our psychophysical constituents or aggregates, a sentient being is conventionally designated.
So, Buddhism denying existence of independent self or permanent oneness self, but self just designated on the combination of body, speech, and mind. So, dark mevas,
So when it's said in Buddhism there is no self, or the teaching of no selflessness, in other words, what is meant by selflessness here is that such an independently existing, permanent, unchanging, unitary and independent or autonomous kind of a self or identity of self is not there, but we don't deny the existence of the conventional personal self.
In Heart Sutra, it mentioned Pumbunga Uttara, Rahi Tamanava Taos. Sanskrit Puyina Pumbunga Uttara Jangsa Jangadi.
And in the Heart Sutra, it is mentioned the five aggregates also are empty of intrinsic nature. In the Sanskrit original text, there is the mention of the term also, whereas it seems in the Chinese translation that particular word is missing.
So, they are the six dot nagare. Pumbunga Uttara Jang Rahi Tamanava Taos is a Pumbula Den Dagger Da. Rashi Dong of Massa, Da Khan then Dagger, Pumbuta Rashi Domination, Damini Shell.
So the particular word in this quotation from the Heart Sutra, also the term also is significant in the sense that in Heart Sutra it is not only saying that the person who is designated on the basis of the five psychophysical aggregates is empty of any inherent or nature, but even the five aggregates themselves on the basis of which the person is designated are empty of intrinsic nature.
So, now next question. So from first question, what's I? The two sort of division or two divisions. Buddhism, no soul theory. The rest of the old tradition except soul theory. Now next question, whether there is a beginning or not. Those theistic religion, God created all creatures. We also, I, self, also created by God. So, when according now Christianity, this very life created by God. One my Christian friend, one time in Australia, I asked him, according to Christianity, no previous life. So what is the reason? Then he told me, this very life created by God. So when I heard that, oh, that's very, 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 very powerful sort of way of approach. This very life created by God, that brings some kind of very feeling of intimacy with God. God really sends our Father. So more feeling of closeness to God, there are more willingness to follow God's path. And what is God's message? Love. The real meaning of God itself is infinite love. So, the more sort of faith, single-pointed faith towards God, the person sort of more sort of like to follow practice of love, compassion. And then also another sort of very important sort of effect from the faith. The single-pointed faith towards God, you totally submit to God. So, one my Christian friend mentioned there is some kind of meaning of emptiness, oneself emptiness, empty. You simply creature of God, no some strong self. Also is very good. So the very purpose of Buddhist sort of theory, no soul, is try to reduce self-centered attitude, self-grasping sort of feeling. So, the theistic religion is not using that sort of theory, but total submission to God is more or less same effect to reduce self-centered, extreme sort of, arrogance feeling. Like that. Self-centered attitude reduce, more willingness to follow God's wish, so practice of love, compassion. Wonderful. No need sophisticated philosophy, simply single-pointed faith to God. Yeah, wonderful. So we notice it's wonderful people who totally dedicate the well-being of others. Their whole life means later part of their life, not the young age. So most part of their life, totally dedicate. They sacrifice their own personal comfort, such as Mother Teresa and her followers in India. And many parts of the world, there are genuine Christian social workers or doctors or teachers really dedicated their own sort of, I think almost their own life or dedicated for well-being of others. That kind of enthusiasm comes from their faith. So wonderful. So now here, according to theistic religion, there is a beginning. Then according to non-theistic religion, in Sangha philosophy, many Hindus believe ultimately creator, Brahma, or Shivaji, like that. Then among the non-Buddhist Jain philosophy, it seems not mention creator, only law of causality. Buddhism also is no concept of creator, but due to its own causes and conditions. Then, among Sangha philosophy, ancient Indian non-Buddhist tradition, two parts. One Sangha philosophy accepts creator. One Sangha philosophy, no creator. So, basically these three. So these three, no creator, only the law of causality. So that's very similar, that's Darwinian theory. Cause, effect, cause, effect. Ultimately, our body comes from particle. After Big Bang, gradually some particles synthesize different form, become plant or rocks. We call mindless. There is life, living thing, but no mind, no feeling, no experience, no cognitive power. Then another, like human being or others, or thousands of different species of mammals. So the body also, you see, have the ability to develop consciousness or mind or feeling, cognitive power. So ultimately, both is the same. Just yesterday or day before yesterday, we had some discussion with some scientists, biologists, biologists. The original sort of source of our body and flower, millions of years ago, same particle. So like that. So, according to these non-theistic religion, no beginning. I think as far as Buddhism is concerned, yes, no beginning. Because of the Sangha philosophy and Jain philosophy, I'm not very sure. I have not yet sort of thoroughly discussed with those scholars. So in the future, when I have sufficient time, I will begin to discuss. So our next meeting, I will tell you exactly what they are sort of the concept. So as far as Buddhism is concerned, in order to investigate whether there is beginning or not about that self, since self designated on the combination of body and mind, so now question is, you have to find whether there is beginning of the body and mind, which is the basis of self, the feeling of self. So whether there is beginning or not about the self, we must investigate the basis where the self designated mainly the continuation of mind or consciousness. So now here we have to investigate whether consciousness beginning or not. Now Buddhist thinking is consciousness, there are different levels of consciousness. So grosser level of consciousness very much related with brain. Now human case, brain. And animals also, those grosser level of animal also is more or less same. More subtle level of consciousness, more more subtler, more independent, something like autonomy. Then furthest realm, this the most subtle level of consciousness, not dependent on brain. There are some now indications. Some people, after physically, clinically dead, physicians check dead, but body remains very fresh. Number of cases in India, as far as I know, I think 30, 40 cases. After that, body remains very fresh. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. At one occasion in early 60s, 4 weeks. So, scientifically, no answer, no explanation. It's something strange, yet to investigate. From the Buddhist viewpoint, the subtle mind is still in the body. Where, I don't know. Here, I don't know. Most literature mentioned the center of the body, not heart, but center of the body, some nervous system. So that is the seed of subtle mind there. So sometimes these kind of dead body, the brain function ceases, breathe of course ceases, heart beating ceases. So brain function ceases, that means death. But some cases, certain little different sort of temperature in this area. So that also may be some connection. I don't know. You have to investigate. So in any way, so that level of consciousness is independent from this body. So at the time of conception, the fathers, mothers, or some sort of liquid come together. Every sort of mix, no guarantee, lifetime. There must be a third factor. That is those liquid from mother's egg and father's semen join. Then there must be a third factor. That we believe that consciousness, subtle consciousness, once enter that sort of matter, that particle, then become, because of that, not only just the life, but his mind there. So then, with mind, it will not rot or it will not decay and then grow. So that's the Buddhist explanation. So the real sort of point is consciousness formless. Any phenomena which changing, momentarily changing, there must be its own causes and the conditions. In the causes, substantial causes and cooperative causes or cooperative sort of conditions. So the substantial cause, the flower, it is substantial causes a thing which has the same nature. So ultimately, the Big Bang time is already the original or the continuation of substantial sort of cause already there. Then different condition. Then you see the different shades, different color, different lines. Now these things happen. So similarly, consciousness with condition of brain, big brain, small brain, these things, like elephant or human being or small sort of insect, you see, because of different size of brain, so intelligence, some differences. So these are the condition causes, cooperative conditions. So the substantial substantial cause, consciousness must come from previous continuation of the consciousness. So if consciousness produced by matter, then so either too many sentient beings, or still so we need further explanation. This body composes 5 elements. These matters also 5 elements. And subtle level, 5 elements is same nature. But some 5 elements have the ability to produce consciousness or to contain some danger. Some of the 5 Jona Namshi Tenchi. Jona reach Namshi Tenchi Mutua, but that is also.
So we have to make a difference here between certain elements, these 5 elements, which can serve as the basis or support for consciousness, and others which cannot serve as a support or basis for consciousness.
So the ultimate sort of point is there is also the continuation of previous consciousness. So that's Buddhist sort of way of explanation. So therefore, consciousness must come from previous consciousness, therefore no beginning. So that's Buddhist way. Self, no beginning, because the basis of self is consciousness. Consciousness is no beginning. Then further question, why? Nature. There are Chabacha Goshishirwa, Chinirwa, Chawshirwa, Deverwa, Teruwa,
There are what are known as the 4 principles, which are the principle of nature, that things come naturally. And then there is this principle which is called the principle of functionality of things. And then there is the principle of relativism or relativity. And then the principle of the reason, logical assertions.
Logical sort of investigation must be based on the law of causality, and also based on law of what's it is, different entity or different element. That
different substantial elements.
And these certain things have their own sort of nature. And then the ultimate sort of answer is nature. So in any way, so the further question is why no beginning? There are some reasons here. And then furthermore, why consciousness must come from consciousness is nature. Like that. So the Big Bang theory, if just one Big Bang, then Buddhists have to sort of think more. From Buddhist viewpoint, why Big Bang take place? There was tremendous sort of energy, then explode. So there must be some sort of particles which produce energy. So that particle also come from another particle. So there must be previous Big Bang. Previous Big Bang even created these particles. Then eventually, it gradually disappeared. Then again, Buddhist literature mentioned space particle. That's very, very most subtle sort of level of particle. We cannot see, only we can see effect. Cannot see itself. Effect can see. So that we call space particle. So space particle, again, is due to some other sort of factors. Then eventually develop that tremendous energy that explode. That's the Big Bang. So go like that. So that's the answer for second question. Now third question. From Buddhist, different Buddhist school of thought, except one school of thought, say, at the time of Mahaparinirvana, Buddha's mind ceased. Except that school of thought, that's one out of 18 the sub-schools of Geshe. One or two school of thought accept that. Otherwise, the Sotantic school of thought, and then also Chittamantra school of thought, and the Madhyamika school of thought, all see. No reason. Sees our consciousness. Basic consciousness. Of course, eye consciousness, when eye organ sort of destroyed, no longer. Even during time, eye consciousness no longer working. At the beginning, yeah. But these all consciousness in the ultimate nature is just mere cognitive. That, and then also like ignorance. There is sort of awareness. So awareness is the opposite of the ignorance. So awareness develops, ignorance disappear. Like ignorance of ABC. As soon as you introduce some sort of remove
patterns, drawings.
Some drawings. This is A, this is B. Then the ignorance of ABC disappears. So awareness of the ABC is the counterforce of ignorance of ABC. Like that. Ignorance of ABC will not go away through prayer, through meditation. Only the ignorance of ABC, only through awareness of ABC. So that's the Buddhist logic. All ignorance is the opposite of the awareness. So awareness always possible to develop. So therefore, all ignorance, all different kind of ignorance can sort of that. So therefore, there is no sort of counter force to existence of continuation of mind. So ignorance and destructive sort of emotions, because there is a counter force, it may cease. But the consciousness itself, no counter force, therefore no reason to cease. Even with the Mahaparinirvana, all the imprints from previous lives end. But subtle consciousness of Buddha's mind still remain. Then on top of that, on the basis of that conception, the four kayas, Nirmana Kaya, Buddha Shakyamuni, historical Buddha was Nirmana Kaya. The Nirmana Kaya come from Sambhoga Kaya. Sambhoga Kaya come from Dharma Kaya. And Jnana Kaya, or the Jnana Kaya come from Dharma Kaya, Dharmata Kaya. So here we call Rangshin Yangde, and Haja Hami Yangde, Minimi Yangde, Nandi Shishido.
So in Buddhist texts, there are mentions of 4 types of nirvana, so to say. which are those of the natural nirvana. And then there are two types of nirvanas, which are called nirvana with residue and nirvana without residue. And then the final one is called without the non-abiding nirvana.
So that's quite similar. That of Dzogchen literature mentioned Yesanggyaba, Yangsanggyaba, Yensanggyaba, and Yangsang, Layasanggyaba.
In Dzogchen tradition, there is also the mention of primordial enlightenment, and then also the re-enlightenment or something like that.
Yesanggyaba Yangsanggyaba,
So without the primordial enlightenment, you cannot actually become fully enlightened in the end, being free from all types of ignorance and its imprint and so forth. And similarly, without there being the natural nirvana, which is the final nature of the mind, there is no possibility for one to become fully enlightened in the end.
So that's about answer for third question. So there's explanation about self. Okay. So now, altruism. Take genuine sense of concern of others' well-being. It works, I think, two ways. That kind of attitude reduces self-centered attitude. Most destructive emotion based on self-centered attitude. Like, firstly, like anger. Anger develops, something very precious. The other, then somebody call enemy, troublemaker. Troublemaker means he or she, their self. He, not so troublemaker for him. Her, not troublemaker for her, but troublemaker for me. So that means strong sense of I. Then point for trouble, create these people. So I call enemy. So develop anger. Once we develop friendship, then anger will not develop. Instead of anger, love, respect, sense of concern come. So where genuine sense of concern of others' well-being, no room of anger, no room of killing, no room of stealing, no room of sexual abuse, no room of telling lies, no room of kasada, chama.
Divisive talk.
So like that. So therefore, altruistic mind develop all this destructive emotion will not sort of develop or strongly. More strong altruistic mind through training there. The destructive emotion come very weak. So therefore, that's one way. Then, another sort of, I think, important thing is, usually, when we develop fear some danger from outside, from other. Once you consider others as a source of happiness and precious, then no basis of fear. Once dedicate well-being of other, no basis of fear. Self-confidence comes. Through that way, you can carry your life honestly, truthfully, transparently. Through that way, you get more friends, more smile. If you, due to self-centered sort of feeling, remain a little bit isolated, remain distant from others, you suffer more. loneliness, too much stress, too much pain. So that's the psychological sort of system, right? Mental sort of system like that. So then second verse is, whenever you meet someone, you must think you are lower. That directional attitude of pride, or bully other, look down other. When you meet people, you must consider others just like me. We're same. And that way, and then others is the limitless number. One self, just one single. So it is wise to think more numberless people's sort of well-being rather than oneself. And in reality, think more well-being of others, you get maximum benefit. Opposite, you think more about your own well-being, selfish thinking. The result, you get more suffering, more worry, more loneliness feeling, like that. So that's second verses. The third verses, even though you want to carry these practices, but your destructive emotion and also selfish feeling may not allow these practices. So we must pay serious attention about these destructive emotions. That's third verses. Then fourth verses, when people like criminal people, right? Criminals, like prisoners, or then like aid patients, or patients of leprosy, right? Leprosy. Sometimes we reject these people, some kind of outcast. That's wrong. When we meet such sort of unfortunate people, we must respect them, we must develop more sort of sense of concern than we must keep more sort of closeness with them. Then the fourth verses. The fifth verses, where some of your neighbor, out of their jealousy for you, and criticize you, then, of course, generally speaking, not your mistake, but their mistake. So we have some kind of right to feel anger like that. But this is mentioned. Person who actually practice altruism, to such sort of cases, someone deliberately criticize you or deliberately take advantage of you, or in such cases you must remember your sort of practice of altruism. So you pay more sort of attention. That's the fifth. And then this sixth, particularly those people to whom you really helped a lot. Actually, they must show you gratitude. But such person, instead of gratitude, harming, then it's difficult to keep altruistic attitude towards them. So such case, we must pay more attention seriously. Then 7 verses, in few words, all sort of good things you must offer to others. All bad things, mentally, you should accept. These are the mental training. Mental training. So sometimes, see, we get sort of wrong sort of positive impression. The Kasoda, Anabe, the Shangi to me, all social lens, the social can be hopeless at that.
So here, with regard to the seventh verse, it's not saying that when you take on the suffering of others, it's actually not advising you to feel hopeless yourself at all.
The altruistic mind, with sort of full cooperation of intelligence. So we must think long-term interest, short-term interest. Long-term interest, if you sacrifice your own life for benefit for others, then you should do. But very carefully calculate, if I survive, the long run can be more sort of benefit. I can use my life more sort of service to others. Then, all suffering take yourself does not mean you should die immediately. Not that way. Clear. Like that. Then, 8th verses. Now the practice of Tanujadu.
So the 8th verse shows the practice of or cultivation of the ultimate bodhicitta.
So that I already briefly mentioned about non-soul theory. So usually we always get the feeling I, self, is something independent, solid. That grasping sort of attitude is the basis of all the negative emotions. Then also, you see, the object which we develop attachment or anger, hatred. We usually, you see, sort of grasp the independent existence of these objects. Now, my American sort of friend, because I didn't mean
Arun Beck, Dr. Arun Beck.
Arun Beck. Once he mentioned to me that when we develop anger towards someone, then that object appears as very negative. But actually, the 90% of that negativeness is our own mental creation. This is exactly, as a Buddhist literature mentioned that. When we develop attachment, that object appears 100% good. Actually, much mental projection. The anger, hatred develop, the object appears 100% negative, but actually not. So these sort of, also the exaggeration develop on the feeling of grasping some independent, absolute sort of the existence. So you see, practice to analyze. There is no such independent, absolute existence. Everything is the mere sort of designation. As I, it works, it exists, but the very nature of the existence is designated. So that way, so the concept of absence of independent existence is very, very powerful antidote. All those negative, destructive emotions. And that sort of concept is very helpful to develop constructive emotions, such as compassion. when you get more sort of awareness, this sort of effect of the emptiness, then you see more clearly about ignorance, ultimate ignorance, subtle level of ignorance. Once you saw the faults of ultimate ignorance and also possibility to eliminate that, then you develop genuine sense of concern of others' well-being. Now this is from Buddhist level. Because suffering can end, can cease. There is always possibility to overcome suffering. Yet, you see, people, out of their ignorance, you see, they continuously suffer. So that develop genuine sense of concern of others' well-being on the basis of valid sort of understanding about nature, like that. So finish. That's one of my commitments, promotion of religious harmony. As I briefly mentioned, all major religious traditions carry same message of love, compassion, forgiveness, these things. So all have the same potential to develop these positive emotions. Yes, different philosophy, but same purpose. All these different sort of philosophy. One, there's no God, no creator, but law of causality. That sort of purpose is, since your sort of happiness, your joyful life depend on your own action, because action and result because of the law of causality. So if you do good, you get benefit. If you do bad, harmful, you get sort of negative consequences. So from understanding of that kind of sort of thinking, then you restrain harming others, develop more sense of concern of others' well-being. Then on the other hand, tremendous faith to God. There is Creator. Everything in the hands of God, Creator. So we must follow our Father's sort of the guidance. That's practice of love, compassion. So different method, but same sort of message, same purpose. All major religious traditions, their main purpose is bring humanity more sort of honest, more truthful, more compassionate, like that. So once we see this sort of the picture, then we can develop genuine sort of respect to all religions, to all sort of major religions. Why I put it major? Some primitive religion just sort of offer pray to sun or moon or fire. That's I don't know. Not much sort of emphasis about practice of compassion. But all other major traditions, like Islam, very much sort of emphasis of practice of compassion. One of my sort of Muslim friend, she told me, the genuine practitioner of Islam must extend love to all creatures of Allah. So same, like that. Some mischievous Muslim, that's different. Some mischievous Buddhists also there. Isn't it? Some mischievous among the Buddhists also there, among the Hindus, among the Jews, among the Christians, among the every religious sort of community. Some mischievous people there. But real sort of the message of all these different religious traditions are same. So now here we must make distinction. Faith towards one's own religion. Respect to all religion. So that's the basis of promotion of religious harmony. So thank you. See you again afternoon.